Alexander had conquered Egypt without a major battle. He had founded the city of Alexandria, visited the Oracle of Amen, and secured the entire eastern Mediterranean coastline. For the first time since the invasion began, Persia's powerful navy had lost its greatest bases. Alexander had achieved exactly what he intended now. Only one objective remained: destroy the Persian Empire itself. Far to the east, Darius III had spent months preparing for another confrontation. Unlike the battles at Granicus and Issus, he would not allow geography to limit his enormous army. This time, he personally selected the battlefield, a wide open plain near the village of Gaugamela, located in northern Mesopotamia. The terrain was almost perfectly flat. Workers even cleared rocks and uneven ground. Everything had been prepared for one purpose: to give Persian cavalry and war chariots every possible advantage. Darius wanted room to surround Alexander. He wanted space to crush the smaller Macedonian army through sheer numbers. Alexander understood the danger immediately. As his scouts surveyed the battlefield, they reported the immense size of the Persian camp. Campfires stretched across the plain like a second sky filled with stars. Some Macedonian soldiers had never seen an army so large. Ancient writers again describe enormous Persian numbers. Modern historians believe those figures were exaggerated. But nearly all agree Darius still possessed a substantial numerical advantage. His forces included Persian infantry, elite cavalry, Greek mercenaries, archers, Bactrian horsemen, Indian cavalry, and one terrifying weapon unfamiliar to many Macedonian soldiers: scythe chariots. Unlike ordinary war chariots, these vehicles carried long blades attached to their wheels. When charging into enemy formations, the spinning blades were designed to cut through soldiers and horses alike. Darius hoped they would shatter the Macedonian phalanx before the main battle even began. Some accounts also mention a small number of war elephants, probably brought from India's western regions. Although they played little role in the battle, their presence demonstrated the vast diversity of the Persian Empire. Alexander reached the battlefield several days later. His officers carefully examined the Persian position. That evening, Parmenion approached the king. The experienced general proposed a surprise night attack. Darkness might reduce the enemy's numerical advantage. It seemed like a sensible plan. Alexander refused, according to ancient historians. He answered with remarkable confidence, "I will not steal my victory." Whether those exact words were spoken cannot be confirmed. But Alexander truly rejected the idea. He wanted a decisive victory achieved openly, not through surprise. Instead, his soldiers rested while the Persians remained awake through much of the night. Many expected an attack before sunrise. Sleep became almost impossible. Alexander himself reportedly slept peacefully. His calmness spread confidence throughout the camp. At dawn, both armies prepared for one of history's greatest battles. The Macedonian line stretched across the plain. The phalanx occupied the center. Parmenion commanded the left wing. Alexander led the companion cavalry on the right, behind the main line. Additional troops waited in reserve. This second line represented one of Alexander's most important innovations. If Persian cavalry attempted to surround the army, fresh soldiers would immediately respond. Across the battlefield, Darius watched from an elevated royal chariot, surrounded by his elite guards, confident that numbers would finally decide the war. Trumpets sounded. Standards rose into the morning sky. The Battle of Gaugamela had begun. Alexander did not march directly toward the Persian center. Instead, his entire army slowly moved diagonally toward the right. The unusual maneuver confused Darius. The Persian king feared Alexander intended to leave the prepared battlefield. He ordered sections of his cavalry to intercept the movement, exactly as Alexander had hoped. The Persian line gradually stretched farther apart. Small gaps began appearing between different units. Alexander watched patiently, waiting, watching, looking for a single weakness. Then, the moment arrived, turning suddenly. He led the companion cavalry directly toward the opening. The charge was devastating. The finest horsemen in Macedonia smashed into the weakened Persian line behind them. The phalanx advanced with relentless discipline. Meanwhile, the scythe chariots rushed forward, Persian commanders expected panic. Instead, Alexander had trained his soldiers carefully. As the chariots approached, the phalanx calmly opened narrow gaps. Many chariots passed harmlessly between the ranks, others became trapped, drivers were killed by javelins, horses collapsed beneath volleys of missiles. The terrifying weapon failed to achieve its purpose soon. Alexander's cavalry broke through the Persian center. For the second time in the war, the Macedonian king rode directly toward Darius himself. The Persian ruler watched the companion cavalry growing closer. His guards fought desperately, but the pressure increased with every passing minute. Then, history repeated itself. Darius turned his chariot. The King of Kings fled once their ruler escaped. Panic swept across much of the Persian army. Entire formations began retreating. Victory appeared certain, but once again, a message reached Alexander. Parmenian's left wing was under enormous pressure. Persian cavalry had nearly broken through. Alexander faced a difficult choice: continue chasing Darius or save his own army. Without hesitation, he turned back. Leading the companion cavalry across the battlefield, he reinforced Parmenion just in time. The Persian attack collapsed. The remaining resistance quickly dissolved. The Battle of Gaugamela was over. It became Alexander's greatest military victory. Unlike Issus, this defeat destroyed Persia's ability to defend its empire. The road to its richest cities now stood open. Alexander wasted no time. His army marched south toward Babylon, one of the greatest cities in the ancient world. Home to magnificent temples, enormous walls, and incredible wealth, many expected another siege instead. The city surrendered peacefully, its gates opened, priests welcomed Alexander, the population accepted him without major resistance. For centuries, Babylon had symbolized imperial power. Now, its treasures belonged to the young Macedonian king from Babylon. Alexander advanced toward another legendary city, Susa, the Persian administrative capital. Like Babylon, Susa surrendered without a major battle. Inside its royal treasury, Alexander discovered unimaginable riches. Ancient sources describe tens of thousands of talents of gold and silver. Modern historians cannot verify every figure, but all agree the wealth exceeded anything Alexander had previously captured. The conquest transformed his finances forever. His army would never again worry about lacking resources. Only one great symbol of Persian power remained: Persepolis, the ceremonial capital built by generations of Persian kings. Its magnificent palaces represented the glory of the Achaemenid Empire. Alexander entered the city in triumph for his soldiers. The conquest fulfilled a dream that had begun with Philip II years earlier. The Persian Empire had been broken. Yet one event at Persepolis remains deeply controversial. During a celebration, fire broke out inside the royal palace. Ancient historians disagree about what happened. Some claim a Greek woman named Thais encouraged Alexander to burn the palace as revenge for Persia's earlier invasion of Greece. Others believe the destruction was a deliberate political message. Still others argue Alexander later regretted the decision. The truth remains uncertain, but the result was undeniable. Flames consumed one of the greatest palaces of the ancient world. Its ruins still stand today. As smoke rose above Persepolis, Darius III remained alive. Somewhere in the eastern provinces, the defeated king was gathering loyal followers once again. Alexander knew the war was not over. As long as Darius lived, someone could still claim to be the rightful ruler of Persia. The young conqueror made a decision. He would pursue the great king to the very ends of Asia, no matter how far he had to ride. The flames of Persepolis faded into history. The ceremonial capital of the Persian Empire had fallen. Its magnificent palaces lay in ruins. Its immense treasures now belonged to Alexander. To many people, the war appeared finished. The Persian Empire had lost Babylon, Susa, Persepolis, and every major battle. Surely, its king would now surrender. Alexander knew better. As long as Darius III remained alive, the empire still had a ruler, no matter how many cities had fallen. Persian nobles could continue rallying around their king. Alexander had no intention of allowing that to happen. In the spring of 330 BC, the Macedonian army marched east. The journey became harder than anything they had experienced before. The rich plains of Mesopotamia disappeared behind them. Ahead lay endless mountains, harsh deserts, and unfamiliar lands stretching toward Central Asia, unlike previous campaigns. Alexander could no longer depend upon wealthy cities to supply his army. Food became more difficult to obtain. Long supply lines stretched back across thousands of kilometers. Every day demanded careful planning. Despite these hardships, the Macedonians continued advancing. Meanwhile, Darius fled deeper into his empire. His authority had collapsed. Many governors no longer believed victory was possible. Some still remained loyal. Others quietly began considering their own future. Among the most powerful Persian nobles was Bessus, the satrap of Bactria. He commanded experienced eastern cavalry and controlled one of the empire's largest provinces. Outwardly, Bessus claimed loyalty to Darius. Privately, his ambitions were growing. As Alexander closed the distance, the Persian court descended into confusion. Some advisors urged Darius to negotiate. Others demanded continued resistance. The king refused to surrender. He still hoped the eastern provinces would provide enough soldiers to continue the war. But trust inside his own camp was disappearing. Eventually, the unthinkable happened. Several Persian nobles turned against their own king, led by Bessus. They arrested Darius. The ruler of the greatest empire in the ancient world became a prisoner of his own commanders. Their plan was simple. If Alexander arrived, they could hand over Darius in exchange for favorable treatment or, if necessary, Bessus could proclaim himself the new great king. Alexander knew nothing of these events. He continued pushing east with remarkable speed. The chase became one of the longest pursuits of his career, day after day. His cavalry covered astonishing distances. The Macedonians crossed scorching plains beneath relentless summer heat. Dust filled the air. Water became increasingly scarce. Still, Alexander refused to slow down. Finally, his advance forces caught up with the fleeing Persians. Realizing capture was only moments away, Bessus and his supporters made a desperate decision. Rather than allowing Darius to fall into Alexander's hands, they stabbed their own king, mortally wounded. Darius was left beside the road as the conspirators fled into the eastern provinces. Shortly afterward, Alexander's soldiers discovered the abandoned royal wagon. Inside, they found Darius barely alive. Ancient historians describe the Persian king asking for water. Some accounts claim a Macedonian soldier offered him a drink. Before dying, Darius reportedly expressed gratitude and asked Alexander to punish those responsible for his murder. Whether every word was recorded exactly remains uncertain, but historians agree on the essential events. Darius died before Alexander reached him. The last king of the Achaemenid Empire was gone. Alexander stood silently before the body of the man he had pursued across Asia. Instead of celebrating, he showed unexpected respect. He ordered Darius to receive a royal burial according to Persian tradition. The former enemy would be buried with the honors due to a king. This decision carried enormous political importance. Alexander was no longer presenting himself merely as the conqueror of Persia. He was beginning to present himself as its rightful successor. The murder of Darius changed everything. Alexander immediately declared Bessus a traitor, not simply because he had resisted Macedonia, but because he had betrayed his own king. The pursuit continued now. Its target was no longer Darius, it was Bessus. The campaign carried the Macedonians into regions few Greeks had ever seen: Bactria, Sogdiana, the lands of modern Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. Towering mountains replaced fertile plains. Vast rivers cut through rocky valleys. The terrain proved far more dangerous than Persian armies. Local tribes knew every mountain pass, every hidden trail, every river crossing. Unlike previous enemies, they rarely fought large battles. Instead, they attacked suddenly, disappeared into the hills, then returned somewhere else. The war had become a struggle against guerrilla tactics. Alexander realized conventional methods would not work. He divided his forces into smaller mobile units. Experienced cavalry patrolled enormous distances. Fortresses were established along important routes. Local leaders willing to cooperate received favorable treatment. Those who resisted faced relentless pursuit. The campaign became exhausting. Even veteran Macedonian soldiers began questioning when the fighting would finally end. After all, the Persian Empire had already collapsed. Why continue marching farther east? Alexander had a different vision. He believed his empire could not remain secure while hostile leaders continued organizing resistance beyond its borders. Eventually, Bessus was betrayed by some of his own followers. They captured him and handed him over to Alexander. The punishment reflected both Macedonian justice and Persian royal tradition. Ancient sources describe Bessus being publicly humiliated before his execution. Different historians provide different details, but all agree his downfall served as a warning. Betrayal of one's king would never be rewarded. With Bessus gone, Alexander expected resistance to end. Instead, the eastern provinces proved even harder to control. New local leaders continued fighting. Mountain fortresses resisted. Entire tribes refused to submit. One stronghold in particular gained legendary status, the Sogdian Rock, built upon towering cliffs. Its defenders believed no army could possibly capture it. They mocked Alexander openly. According to ancient writers, they declared the Macedonians would need soldiers with wings before they could reach the summit. Alexander accepted the challenge. He called for volunteers. 300 experienced climbers stepped forward, using iron pegs, ropes, and remarkable courage. They climbed the nearly impossible cliffs during the night. Many fell to their deaths, but enough reached the top before sunrise the next morning. The defenders looked upward to their astonishment. Macedonian soldiers stood above them. The fortress surrendered almost immediately. Inside the captured stronghold, Alexander encountered a young noblewoman named Roxana. Ancient sources describe her as exceptionally beautiful. She came from one of the leading families of the region. What began as a political encounter would soon become something far more significant. For the first time in his life, Alexander would make a decision that surprised both his friends and his army. A decision that would change not only his personal life, but also the future of the empire he was still determined to expand. The capture of the Sogdian Rock ended one of the strongest centers of resistance in Central Asia. Its defenders had believed the fortress could never fall. Alexander had proven otherwise. Among those taken into his protection was Roxana, the daughter of the Sogdian noble Oxyartes. Ancient writers describe her as remarkably beautiful, but beauty alone did not explain what happened next. Instead of treating Roxana as a political hostage, Alexander chose to marry her. The decision surprised nearly everyone. Macedonian kings usually married for political alliances, yet many of Alexander's companions had expected him to choose a noblewoman from Macedonia or Greece. Instead, he married the daughter of a Central Asian noble family. The marriage carried important political advantages. It strengthened relations with local rulers. It encouraged cooperation instead of endless rebellion. But many historians also believe Alexander genuinely admired Roxana. Ancient sources suggest the marriage was based on more than simple politics. Whether love played a role can never be known with certainty. The wedding followed local customs, rather than celebrating with overwhelming luxury. Ancient writers describe a symbolic ceremony. A loaf of bread was cut with a sword. Bride and groom shared the pieces together. The marriage represented more than the union of two people. It symbolized Alexander's changing vision. He no longer wanted to rule Persia merely as a foreign conqueror. He increasingly saw himself as ruler of a united empire, one that blended Macedonian, Greek, Persian, and Central Asian traditions. Not everyone welcomed these changes. Many Macedonian officers disliked Alexander's growing admiration for Persian customs. Some questioned why their king now wore elements of Persian royal clothing. Others disliked seeing Persian nobles welcomed into positions of authority. The tension remained beneath the surface. For now, Alexander ignored the criticism. He believed unity mattered more than tradition. By 327 BC, resistance across Central Asia had largely been broken. Most local rulers accepted Macedonian authority. Many believed Alexander would finally return home. Instead, he announced another astonishing plan: the army would continue east, far beyond the borders of the former Persian Empire, toward India to the Greeks. India was a land surrounded by mystery. Merchants spoke of enormous rivers, powerful kingdoms, magnificent cities, rare animals, and immense wealth. Few Greeks had ever traveled so far. Alexander wanted to explore these unknown lands. He also hoped to conquer every territory that had once acknowledged Persian authority. His soldiers prepared for yet another campaign. The army crossed the towering Hindu Kush mountains once again. The journey tested every man's endurance. Narrow mountain trails wound through snow-covered peaks. Pack animals slipped along dangerous paths. Food became scarce. Cold winds swept across the high passes. Even experienced veterans struggled. Yet Alexander marched beside them, sharing the hardships of the campaign. When the army finally descended into the valleys beyond, the landscape changed dramatically. Dense forests replaced barren mountains. Wide rivers crossed fertile plains. The climate became warmer and more humid than anything most Macedonians had experienced. Soon, Alexander encountered the first rulers of northwestern India. Some welcomed him peacefully. One of them was King Ambhi of Taxila. Rather than resisting, Ambhi offered friendship. He provided supplies, guides, and additional troops. The alliance greatly benefited Alexander. Taxila became an important base for the next stage of the campaign. But not every ruler accepted Macedonian rule. Farther east, beyond the Hydaspes River, ruled a powerful king named Porus. Ancient Indian sources know him as Porus. He governed a large kingdom, commanded experienced warriors, and possessed something the Macedonians had rarely faced in battle: war elephants, massive animals trained for combat. Each carried armed warriors upon its back, to horses unfamiliar with them. The elephants appeared terrifying. Alexander knew defeating Porus would not be easy, as the Macedonian army approached the Hydaspes River. Another obstacle appeared. The river itself. It was enormous, fast-flowing, and swollen by seasonal rains. Crossing it under enemy observation seemed nearly impossible. Porus positioned his army along the opposite bank. Every crossing point was carefully watched. Whenever Macedonian patrols approached the water, Indian forces moved to intercept them. For days, Alexander studied the river every morning. His cavalry rode along different sections of the shoreline. Every evening, they returned. The movements appeared random. In reality, they served a purpose. Alexander wanted Porus to believe the Macedonians were uncertain. Night after night, campfires burned across different locations. Trumpets sounded unexpectedly. Small detachments marched back and forth. Gradually, the Indian army grew accustomed to these repeated demonstrations. The constant movement became routine then. During a violent thunderstorm, Alexander made his move. Rain poured across the countryside. Thunder echoed through the darkness. Visibility became almost impossible, leading a carefully selected force. Alexander marched upstream. Hidden by trees and heavy rain, they reached a small wooded island in the river. From there, boats, rafts, and inflated animal skins carried the soldiers across the water. The crossing proved extremely dangerous. Strong currents swept men downstream. Several boats collided. Others overturned completely, even after reaching the opposite bank. The soldiers discovered they had landed on another flooded channel. They crossed again. Finally, Alexander's advance force reached solid ground. At first light, Indian scouts spotted the Macedonians. Porus immediately realized he had been deceived. He sent his son with a cavalry force to delay the crossing. A fierce engagement followed. Alexander personally led the companion cavalry. The Indian force was defeated. Porus's son was killed during the fighting. Now, there could be no turning back. Porus gathered his full army. War elephants formed the front line. Infantry stood behind them. Cavalry protected both wings. Alexander prepared his own formation carefully. The Battle of the Hydaspes, one of the greatest battles of his career, was about to begin. For the first time, the Macedonians would face an enemy whose greatest weapon was not cavalry, not chariots, but towering elephants capable of shaking even the bravest soldiers. Ahead lay one of the hardest victories Alexander would ever earn, and one of the most remarkable friendships of his entire life.